Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hello there and welcome back. It is your friend Cesar Espino, and you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com. And welcome to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Today I have a special guest. His name is David Somerfleck. Hey David, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Cesar. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad to have you here. Before we get started, let me just give our listeners and viewers a little bit of background of you, and then we can kind of dive into the interview.
Sure.
So David is a digital marketer and business growth expert with over 20 years of experience working for multiple marketing agencies and 10 years experience as a nonprofit small business mentor. David has written for Fox Reality, spoken at Microsoft, advised several politicians, and is also the author of The Road to Digital Marketing Profits.
Yes.
That's awesome. I love it. Wow. So, David, why don't we start by giving us a little bit of your background? Where did you come from, and what's your backstory?
Well, basically, I was born in New York.
Okay.
My father was a military man for about 35 years. In college, I studied English, and my desire was to be a writer. I graduated from college. I had several internships working for newspapers in my spare time. This was in the mid-'90s. So in between internships and working during the summers, I began to study internet marketing and programming because really writing was not that much fun for me because all we did in college all day, all my courses were studying Shakespeare, Chaucer, Keats, medieval journalism, which is like a root canal for me. So, I graduated from college and I realized, wait a minute, all the jobs for writers where I went to college in that area, the jobs were very, very low paying. And there weren't that many. They're extremely competitive. It's all about who did you know to get you in. So I started working for different marketing and advertising agencies and then slowly got more and more involved in digital marketing. And people use the term internet marketing and digital marketing. They're kind of the same. I prefer digital marketing because it refers to the type of tools that you use, like any other service provider. And now, after that experience, I worked for different marketing agencies for about maybe 20 to 30 years. In between then, I would also freelance on my own as a contractor in between positions. I also had training as a political campaign consultant. So I also got involved in several political campaigns.
Got it. Now, prior to you getting into maybe even following your passion, were there any major obstacles that you had to overcome, even with your own self, kind of saying, you wanted to be a writer, obviously didn't seem very promising. Were there any things that maybe were going through your mind saying, why move from what I love or what I wanted to do, which is a writer, to now going to digital marketing?
Yeah, I had a lot of doubt. I was very, very fortunate in that the writing and the editing and proofreading was still my bread and butter. I could write a lot of volume. In other words, I could write what they call ghost writing,
Hmm.
where you would write a book for someone else and they would get to put their name on it.
Yeah.
And in exchange, you would get paid. After a while, you start to feel very bad about yourself because here you are writing these books that you could do yourself, but they're getting the credit, they're making the money, they're publishing it, promoting
Hmm.
it, and so on. Um, but I was able to get into digital marketing and SEO and design very gradually. And there was a period of time when I stopped it completely and then went back to it. Um, and, in between those positions, I'd work as a contractor. And I don't really care for the term freelancer. I think contractor just sounds more professional, more serious. Um, well, I had a lot of self doubt, and I had to learn how to work with clients who did not know what they wanted, did not know what it would be like to work for an agency, so had unrealistic expectations, would have very small budgets, but want so much in return.
Hmm.
It's not at all unusual to hear someone say, well, I want to be number one in the Google. I want to have a beautiful custom website that works on all different types of devices, but my budget is $200. And you're like, that's insane.
Yeah. Right.
It doesn't work like that. Or, I have a website, but no one's calling me. Well, usually there's a reason for that. Are you receptive to change? Do you have a realistic budget? So now you have to explain to them how a realistic budget is devised. So I had a lot of issues to work through working as a solopreneur or as an individual
Mm.
consultant. Um, and I worked for agencies and for a long, 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 long time. And I was also a certified small business mentor off and on for about 10 years through an organization called SCORE, which is a division of the United States Small Business Administration.
Mm.
So I was a business mentor for them for about 10 years. It's a long time.
Right.
In that capacity, I probably consulted with several hundred business owners of all kinds. They stopped keeping records after a while because it was impossible to keep up with. After doing that for about 10 years, I really started to get the confidence that I could speak to any business owner or nonprofit founder or startup founder and really assess what was going on with them very quickly and that I could help. So it gave me the confidence to really take myself much more seriously as an independent consultant outside of working for marketing agencies or even just as a freelance digital marketer. So I officially semi-retired about 3 years ago and moved to Florida with my lovely wife. And I just said, okay, now I'm one guy and I have a small team of freelancers who I work with if I need to do that.
Right. Yeah. And one thing that comes to mind is, you know, going from writing or having that the one thing you wanted to do or you were doing in college to being a digital marketer.
Yeah.
It seems like they're definitely in opposite sides, right? You know, of the spectrum.
Yeah, you would think.
Okay.
But the funny thing is that if you look at Google, everybody uses Google, but very few people really understand how it works or even what it does. Every business owner wants to be number one in Google, but most of them aren't doing anything to make that a reality. And what I've learned is that the longer the internet is around, the more people need well written, intelligent,
Mm.
entertaining content for their websites, for their marketing. They need a way to get the attention and interest of their readers. There's so much social media out there now and so many people posting to Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn, but most of them are just ads.
Mhm.
They don't speak to you as a human being. They don't speak to your needs as a man, as a business owner, right? I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
most don't. Maybe some do, but most don't. I never see ads that speak to my interests when I'm on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. I never see anything that interests me directly. Like maybe razors.
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe a new blue suit, you
Yeah.
know. I don't see anything that speaks
To
to
you.
that
Yeah. Right.
or my concerns. Being a better digital marketer, being a better author. So I realized, that what that old expression, what brought you to the dance,
Mm-hmm.
what brought us to the dance is people. What made us idiosyncratic, what made us special as fathers, as husbands, as men, or as humans is more relevant now than ever before because the technology in many ways is keeping us apart
Mm-hmm.
rather than bringing us together.
Right.
So much of social media, I don't want to use expletives on your show, but so much of what is social media is just like it's like baby food. They're
Right.
ads. It doesn't help you. It doesn't speak to you. You delete, 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 delete. Most of my time on email is spent deleting. You know, so I think what really makes us our core offering is more important now and more relevant than ever before.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. And I know even with just so much content, I go through my emails and I have so much junk, like you said, so many
Yeah.
ads that are not even relevant to me. I'm just going through that and I feel like I'm spending more time deleting stuff than actually sourcing through the things that are actually beneficial to me, that are helping
Right.
me move forward, right?
Right. And we all are.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I'm a digital marketing guy. I love digital marketing. But if I go and work with an agency, with a large marketing agency, right? Or if I want to promote myself as a large marketing agency, first of all, if I were to do it with myself, I would have to outsource it. I would need help. It would be too much for one man to do. If I were to do that for an agency or a large enterprise business, which means 50 or more employees, you're talking you're going to need help again. And B, you're posting to social media outlets 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. How do you make your marketing content speak to your ideal client? Because if you talk to a new small business owner and you ask them, who is your ideal client, sir or madam? They will say, anybody, anybody with money to spend, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it doesn't work like that. You don't want to work with anyone. You don't want anybody on your podcast. You want people who are hopefully intelligent, articulate, maybe a little silly or entertaining, kind of mash things up a little bit. So not every business should be working with everyone or anyone.
Right.
So it becomes more about like dating. You want to reach the right type of person for what you can do.
Mm.
Not everyone is going to like tall, skinny, bald guys. Not everybody's going to like whatever your business offering is. So you have to look at it in that context. It's not about reaching more people. It's about how do you reach the right type of person with a very niche group
Mm.
so that they can look at what you're offering and say, oh yeah, that speaks to me right away.
Yeah.
You know, there's a company called Headblade that came out a long time ago, and they came out with a special razor that fits on your ring finger. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't.
It's a razor that fits on your ring finger. It looks like a little dune buggy.
Mm.
Even has wheels on it.
Hmm.
You run it up and down your head so you can shave your head very quickly. I got one or two because I loved their marketing.
Right.
How they were marketing themselves spoke to me.
Yeah.
Now, how's the company doing now? I don't know. But that's a good example of speaking directly to you. There's a company called Canva that I use, and they're crushing it. And their marketing is specifically toward people who want to be creative, who
Mm-hmm.
want to be artistic, but don't have $1 million a year. They're not super technical. They need something that can be quick, easy, get it done, move on. And they're doing very, very well. So it's not about speaking to everyone. It's about speaking to the small percentage of people who will like you.
Yeah.
you
And
know.
with that, I think the other thing that is important is being able to, when you're doing speaking to that group of people, connecting with them too, right?
Yeah,
And that's just like in anything in business, personal or professional, where you have to be able to create that connection and not just go out and put out all of this content to everybody hoping to get some sort of traction. It's, you have to be specific, and once you find that, connect with those people. And I think that's part of the thing
yeah,
that sometimes people end up missing, the opportunity of anything, right, in their lives. So one thing that I'm curious, even going through your journey and having that self-doubt, you obviously adjusted to it based on stepping into the digital marketing world. Were there any specific things you were doing though, to help you with that, whether it's self-development, whether
oh
it's
yeah,
working on your, I want to know more about some of those things that you were doing.
absolutely. The thing is, it's like if you're an expert in marketing and branding, and you advised hundreds and hundreds of business owners of just about like every type imaginable. For some reason, it's very hard to apply what you've learned into what you would apply to others. It's very difficult to apply that to yourself and be objective. It's very difficult. And because you can't really see yourself when you're too close into that frame,
Mm,
you know? And I had to take a real step back because working within the parameters of a larger agency where you have someone in charge who can take the heat for most decisions. If you have your own agency, if you're not making enough money to pay the people who work for you, if you're not making enough money to pay the rent or the mortgage, you have one person to go to.
yeah,
That's it. And
yeah,
if you make bad decisions, you sleep in the car, your wife could suffer for it, your family could suffer for it. So it's not a game anymore. Um, so I had to, have some real introspective moments with that. And I think for me, it was really when I kind of decided to hang things up and kind of officially retire a couple of years ago, I had to really realize that I'm going to redo this. I'm not going to start an agency. It's going to be one guy.
hmm,
And I work with one business, maybe two at a time. And that's it. And I can stagger that workflow. I can outsource. I can get help when and if I need it with a small band of the hand type of group. But it was a lot of reflection, a lot of introspection, a lot of looking at things kind of in a brutal way. I started posting to social media right away. And then I
hmm,
realized I don't like what I'm posting.
mm,
That's not me. I don't like it. So I just took a step back. I'm still somewhat active on social media, but not crazy so, because I really wanted to take a step back and write better content, more relevant content, make more videos, but be more slow and more deliberate
mm,
about how I make videos. If I don't like them, then I don't think you will like them. And maybe the people out there would, but I want them to be better for me. So I want them to be more intimate. I want them to be more one-on-one conversations. I don't want the cute little graphics with the popping bubbles and the bloop, bloop, bloop and all that mess. I want to talk person to person about the real world, and especially now, you have a lot of people out of work, a lot of people are hurting, and they're wondering how they're going to pay the mortgage, how they're going to pay the rent, how they're going to feed their kids. You can't get toilet paper, you can't get alcohol to wipe things down. A lot of jobs are going under faster than people can even keep track of now. So this is the time for the business owners to pivot if they can. It's time for people to consolidate and bring together their family, to their resources, and it's time, it's like that expression where the rubber meets the road. This is the time to really get real about what our expectations are.
right, yeah.
And I think all of that is more relevant than ever before.
Yeah, no, and I love what you mentioned, and there's a few things that I took from that. Number one is, even as you're putting information, you're reviewing what you're putting out, you're rehearsing that. If it doesn't fit your values, your mission, you have to readjust to that, right?
Hmm.
So, and a lot of times we forget to do
Yeah.
that. So that, I think that's critical for the people that are listening. The other thing is that,
What is your mission? What is your mission? You
right.
know, I mean, I was looking at that this morning because I was thinking about writing some content,
Hmm.
and I'm like, what is my mission? Who are my ideal clients? Basically, what I require of my own clients, I need to require of myself. And if you take most small business owners or entrepreneurs or new nonprofit founders or service providers, and you ask them, what is your mission? How do you differentiate yourself from all your competitors? I've had people tell me I have no competitors. I've really heard that.
Yeah.
I've heard people say, I don't know what you're talking about. Um, so now when I work with clients, I require that we have to talk 2 or 3 times doing a video conference like this. After we do 2 or 3, and they don't have to be long, after we do 2 or 3, then I say, that's fine. I want to have a paid discovery session where I charge $50 or $60, which is not a lot.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm not going to get rich off of that. It's
Right.
not about making money. It's about seeing that they're serious enough.
Their commitment. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have that. And I require that they download a workbook. They read the workbook, try to do the workbook before we talk. So we do not waste another minute of time and we get down to business,
Yeah.
and that's hardcore. And no
Yeah.
more happy talk. Let's
Right.
just, let's just, it's time to get down to business.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. And the other thing you mentioned is that as you're going through this self-doubt and getting yourself positioned in terms of where you want it to be, is that you took action. You created kind of a game plan, right? And that's one thing that I also believe people forget is, like, I don't know how to do this. You ended up stepping back, looking
Yeah.
at, right, stepping back and say, okay, what do I need to do? I'm only gonna, sign up 2 clients or whatever amount of clients you want to sign up. I'm only gonna focus on this, and I'm gonna do step A, B, C, and D. And so that's a lot of the things that we have to do when it comes down to that. What I consider to be strategy planning is create an action plan, go out and execute
Yes.
it, and then take care of that, right?
Yeah, it's vital because, again, when I was a small business mentor and I would talk to small business owners of every kind you can think of, lawyers, people who had their own little clinics. I talked to people opening barber shops, restaurants, catering companies, you name it. And also, one of the ways that I would always get a lot of new leads was I would have 4-hour boot camps. I found that if I did a 4-hour boot camp and I advertised it through Meetup, Eventbrite, Facebook, whatever, I charged maybe $99 a person.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever I was, I would fill the conference room in that one day. So easily you make enough money to pay your mortgage or your rent in one day, very easily. If you do 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 per month, that would be a great way to attract people. And I would see on a very regular basis that they really, the thing was with internet marketing, with digital marketing, they would look at the tools, but they wouldn't look at goals and expectations. And when I would bring it up, it would seem like a profound, very deep statement to them. And I don't know why, because to me it's common sense.
Right. Yeah.
So I would say, well, look, I could build you a beautiful website, but without the right SEO, who's going to find it?
Yeah.
So what is SEO? Do they know what that is? How do I get past this barrier here? Do they want to know? Are they open to me explaining it? Can I explain it in a way that's not real techie, right? Everybody wants money. You need money to pay your bills, right? But why is it almost no website has e-commerce?
Mm. Yeah.
Why is it? I need money, you need money,
Mm-hmm.
but most websites on the internet don't use e-commerce. Why not?
Mm.
If you're a lawyer, shouldn't you be taking money online to charge people so you can speak with them? If when I used to have a goatee, I used to have a beard down to like here. I would go to the barber shop to have it trimmed, and that was very relaxing for me. I enjoyed it, right? I only found one barber shop that would take payments online. And then they had a problem with you booking the reservation in advance. I'm like, great. Then I found another one that would let you book the appointment online in advance, but wouldn't let you pay. So I'm like, all right, that's just not something that's going to be easy for them. So anyway, rather than focusing on tools, how cheap can I get it? How can I get this? How can I get that? I said, let's take a look at what it is that you're trying to achieve and why. That's going to define in a top-down order how to put structure to this. One of the things I learned from being around military people was that everything had to be in a very clear top-down structure. There was a very deliberate, thought-out order to everything that was being done. And so I learned from them to always do things, in groups. I like to use the band of the hand metaphor a lot, like the small mobile SEAL team type of unit for having groups, for organizing things. Everything is in a top-down structure. So anyway, that's why I wrote my book, The Road to Digital Marketing Profits, which basically takes you from the perspective that you're very, very new to this. You're not really sure what to do or where the tools come in or anything like that. So we walk you through getting clear about all of these things. And then by the end of the book, you would have a business plan that you could take with you to a credit union or a bank and request a loan, and it would have the structure that they would expect.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. So that was one of my questions before I go more in deep to that. So what's your belief? And I think I kind of see it. I just want to get it from you. What is your belief in terms of when it comes down to that strategy plan? I believe that you have to have the end in mind, know what you're trying to achieve, and then everything else will work itself through, right? I mean, obviously you have to create actions, you have to create different disciplines.
Yeah.
And to me is first know where do you want to go, or what do you want to do, or what do you want to accomplish, and then you can work backwards, right? How important is that for anything that we do in our lives?
It's critical on multiple levels. Before I met my wife, I had all kinds of negative relationships. When I took a break and said, I'm going to look within, I'm going to read books on the subject, I'm going to write out what it is I want or would like anyway, then I met my wife and said, wow, this is great. Was, very happy. As it relates to business and our personal lives as well, there's an old saying that you get out what you put in. And the late, great writer, Mickey Spillane, who wrote the old Mike Hammer detective novels, he once said that he wrote, I don't know how many books, like 100 books or probably more. And an interviewer said, how do you write so many books like this? And he said, well, I always know the ending before I sit down. And so the ending is like a lantern at the end of the path.
Yeah.
So I can see the path in front of me before I start. I know what's going to happen. So now I can have fun building to that. I can have characters kill each other or whatever and throw in all kinds of, plot threads or mystery or whatever, because I know how I'm going to end this. The reader doesn't, but I do.
Yeah.
So I think it's critical to know where you want this to be. And if you could give me any example and I could speak to that.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
any business you could think of,
yeah.
You could give me an example and I could tell you how to apply that to that particular type of business.
Right. No, yeah, I love that. Definitely do. Now, in terms of your book, so you kind of mentioned why you wrote the book. Is it more like a written book? Are there working worksheets in there that you can do, and more of that? Yeah,
it's a workbook because my first goal was I wanted to write something that would talk about business and the role digital marketing could play in that, the need to have an organized, deliberate foundation to work from. at first I wanted that to be a book. And my goal was to have it be a fiction book, like a cross between Willy Wonka
Hmm.
and a business book. But then I was like, I kept looking at it like, I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy with it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to write it as a workbook, but I want it to be very accessible to people who might be nervous or uncomfortable or
Hmm.
unsure. So it takes the metaphor of driving. So I would go on day trips and speak at so many conferences and events. So I always enjoyed a long drive, a good way to relax and everything, right? So I used the metaphor of a road trip. So that's why I call it the road to
The
digital
digital
marketing
marketing. Yeah.
profits. So you start from point A where you don't know where you're heading. You get the GPS, you get the map, you check to make sure you have a full tank of gas, your tires are inflated, you have music to listen to that you like, and what have you. And then we go through all the detours and all the hitchhikers and the carjackers and the monsters on the side of the road waiting for you to get off and go for a walk.
Mm.
You're not in the car. Why did you get out of the car? So we kind of take it from that metaphorical approach. And by the end of the novel or the workbook, you get to the end of your destination, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, yeah, it does, and I really like that. There's so much metaphor there that just kind of telling that little story. It's again like anything in life, right? And I see life as a journey, and I see ourselves as the vehicle that is carrying us through this journey called life. And so we got to be able to take care of that. And it's kind of what you're talking about there. It's like take care of that journey, that road, so that it can get to that end result that you're looking for.
Yeah. And if you don't know where you're going, that's where you're going to end up. Just like, again, with the whole dating metaphor, which I think
Hmm.
is very, very applicable. If you don't know who's right for you and what you're looking for, what matters to you most, then you're not going to be happy and you won't make other people happy.
Right.
When I was younger, I used to have thick curly hair and all of this, and I was heavier and I'd go out and party. Well, what was right for me then isn't right for me now. I'm a homebody.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
not right for me. I want to be able to lay on the couch and eat Doritos if I want to, or I may want to come in my office and study webinars all day long.
Hmm.
So, and now with the COVID-19, I'm not going to nightclubs even if I could get in there, even if
Hmm.
I'd still had my moxie, from
Yeah.
being, younger.
Yeah.
So it's really important to know what you want and be clear about it, and ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to get what you want?
Mm. Yeah.
Are you willing to get dirty and go hungry and get beat up and be humiliated in order to get what you want? Because if you are, nothing can stop you.
Yeah.
But if you are not willing to be uncomfortable, to go hungry, to get beat up, and be humiliated and go through these experiences, you can't. I saw some woman protesting in the news where she was angry and she said, well, I've been locked up for 60 days, or yeah, I
Hmm.
think it was 60 days. I'm like, lady, being locked up for 60 days that's nothing.
Hmm.
That's nothing. There are people around the world who would love to have a nice home filled with food, have Netflix and books to read, and be able to relax for 60 days and not have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Here you are complaining about it. That's not suffering. Suffering is not having a comfortable home, not having enough food, or being exposed to dangerous environments. I saw, I know I'm digressing here,
No, no, it actually makes
but
sense. Yeah.
I saw a show on Netflix. It's a very, very underrated show. I recommend it to anybody
Hmm.
out there, called Go Back Where You Came From.
Mm.
What a title.
Yeah. Go back where you
Like,
came from.
yeah, thanks. So that's really the name of the show. And it's about people who are emigrating
Hmm.
from other countries who want to go live in Australia,
Mm.
and Australian citizens who look at them and say, go back where you came from. Nobody wants you here. I don't like you. We don't
Mm.
need you here. Go back where you came from. So what they do, I love the show. I wish you would do a US version, although I doubt it,
Mm-hmm.
in the show on Netflix. So they take the people in Australia and they say, oh, that's fine. You're going to go and live where they came from for a week or two.
Mm.
So now the people who are living in bombed out areas in Iran, you get to go live in their apartment building where they can't go out at night or get shot. The guy who, whose home is a sheet of plastic hanging from a tree, you get to go live there for a week. Then they come back and they all have like, oh my God, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It's a very moving show.
Yeah, no, and I can see that, and again, it goes back to what you mentioned earlier today is
Empathy goes both ways. I'm
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you.
No, yeah, it does, and it definitely does, and again, when we think about, if you look at it from either one or the other perspective, one thing that I've learned is that appreciate what you have now because you may not have it tomorrow, and
Yes.
being on both sides, there's a different value that you put on certain things, right, or certain aspects. What
Yeah.
we're going through right now, whether whatever the case may be, right, and some people want to blame the government, want to blame everybody. Everybody's going through it. What I believe is how do you react to that is what's going to make a difference, and so
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
And so the other thing too is that when we start thinking about that and we're saying, well, I'm going to work with what I have, right? And I'm going to do the things that I have to do based on what I know to be true now or what's in front of me, which is kind of gathering the available data, not all the data, just the available data.
Yeah.
Let's see what I can do with that, right? And I think that's where people tend to miss a lot of that because they want the answers. They want to get the $1 million. They want to be able to have all these different things, yet they're not willing to put the work to get that done.
Yeah. And I mean, the reality is, yes, you can overcome anything, but it's with the caveat. Are you willing to sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
to get that? Um, growing up, I had a speech impediment. I was slightly dyslexic. And back in the 60s, if you have trouble reading and you have issues speaking, and plus I couldn't hear very well out of this ear for some reason. I had a lot of ear infections. I was a very sickly child. Back then in the 60s, if you have those issues, they just figured you're just stupid or, or you're retarded. They didn't know what to do. They really didn't. I decided I wouldn't accept any of that. And I just decided that I would force myself to read no matter what. Not acceptable. So I would sit down with a book and I would sit in a chair. I would sit on my bed. And I'm not getting up until this book is over. If I have to go to the bathroom, I'll bring the book with me. Then go back to the chair. I'm not leaving. So I'd literally sit for 2 or 3 or 4 hour increments and read books. And that helped me. I would listen to guys like Les Brown and Zig Ziglar, and some of these other motivational speakers. I still don't articulate like them, but from watching them, I gained inspiration. I started taking acting when I was in college to come out of my shell. I would be nervous, but I would get out there. And that's how I learned to overcome these obstacles. And, I was never very athletic. And so, but I would participate in athletics anyway. If it meant getting hurt or getting beat up or knocked down, so what? That was how you would learn.
Right.
I've had my nose broken like 3 or 4 times. But that's what I mean when I say, what are you willing to trade to get what you want?
Right. And one thing that you mentioned
doesn't matter.
Right. And one thing that you mentioned, and Les Brown talks about this, he said, do not let somebody else's opinions about you define your future, right? Or your purpose. And like you said, you ended up saying, I'm not going to accept what the doctors or whatever people are saying about my condition or whatever condition they think I have. I'm not going to give that power away. I'm going to take that power back and I'm going to do it because that's what I want, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's so critical and so important in anything that we do. And you're right, we have to be able to uh, step into that and say, if I want to overcome this obstacle, the one in front of me, am I willing to do everything from A to Z, not skipping any steps, just doing it, right?
Yeah, there's actually a famous self-help book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I could make a list for you from above Buddha's head all the way down to my chin of all of the fears and insecurities and worries that I've had that I still may struggle with. But how you overcome them. And you may never overcome them completely, but you deal with it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
You know, I'm very critical of what I write because, again, I studied writing in college. That was my major. I wanted to be a great author. So everything I look at in that lens. That's not really very realistic.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize that. So you do it anyway.
Right.
You keep taking one more step forward until you come through it. When will the COVID-19 pandemic end? We don't know, but you take it one day at a time.
Mm.
You know, so that's all we can do, and that's how you overcome.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. David, I'm having such a good time. So I have a few more questions for you before I let you
Sure,
go. Um,
absolutely.
so in terms of do you have any daily habits that you do
Oh yeah,
that you can share with us? Because I think that's good for us to start looking at ideas of things that we might be able to do on a day-to-day basis.
I'm actually very, very disorganized.
Okay.
Incredibly disorganized. I'm a very messy guy. One of the reasons why I wear all blue is because I'm a horrible dresser. I never know what to wear. And one day my wife just said, "Look, what's your favorite color?" I said, "Well, I think my favorite color is blue." So she said, "Okay, you're going to be the tall, skinny, bald guy who wears blue everywhere."
Mm.
And then the marketer in me said, "Well, what is it that you do?" And I do a million things. Well, what do you want to do? So I'm a digital marketing guy. I love that the most. It's the most creative. Okay, well, my initials are DMS. I'm going to be a digital marketing specialist. But to answer your question, I work from lists.
Mm.
So I use a thing called Kanban, which is a Japanese method for putting together different lists that have different colors. So one could be yellow, red, green, blue, brown, purple, whatever. One list could be projects under development. One list could be social media posts. One list could be blog posts to write. One list could be videos to work on. One list could be clients to call back. Then another list could be done. So you would move everything to the done list to be reviewed, right? So what I do is I work from a quarterly list and then a monthly list, a weekly list, and then I break it down into a daily list. And I don't really try to go further than that. So it wasn't 90 days ago, maybe 6 months ago. My goal was to write a book that I could feel proud of, that I would think would be, look, it's not perfect, it's not Shakespeare, but you know what? It's okay. People could benefit from this. I could believe in this. So I started doing it. And when it went for sale on Amazon, I was so nervous because I'm thinking, oh God, what if I get some really lousy review or
Mm-hmm.
someone who just wants to be smart and just say something nasty? What do I do? It's really going to hurt me. And the first two reviews were very, very positive. So I thought, wow, this is great. But I work from lists. And without the list, I'm just going to get online and have fun. I'm just going to, I'll spend my time looking at some person's opinion on social media that ultimately doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
I don't know them. What difference does their opinion make? Are they an expert? If you're not an expert in your area or in a field, what difference does it make what the person thinks or doesn't think, whether they like you or don't like you?
Right.
It doesn't matter. Unless they're a family member, I don't care. So, I had to learn to separate that,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the pandemic. I was in that habit for like a week or two where I was looking at the news every 10 minutes and you're thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen now?
Yeah, right.
What's going to happen? And I realized after about 2 weeks, I said, I don't like that. I don't like how it's making me feel. I feel like I'm being played.
Yeah.
So I decided I'm not going to look at the news. I'm not going to watch anything the president says. And what I'll do is every 2 or 3 weeks, I'll look at refdesk.com and I'll go through all the major headlines, all the major sources in 10 or 15 minutes. And then I'll know what's going on in the world.
Hmm. How difficult was it to build and or create the discipline for you uh, to get into this habit?
You mean after the virus,
Well,
after the
well,
pandemic started?
in general, just to get into the color coding planning, like
Yeah.
to create that discipline. I know that you might want to do it now, and then tomorrow, like, I'm not gonna do it, and then kind of going back and forth. Like, how difficult was that for you to stay true to that discipline and making sure that you do it every day or however often you do it without fail?
It took me several months to get to that point to figure out what I wanted. I would tinker with it,
Mm-hmm.
but it took me actually probably 90 days to figure out what the lists would be, what would be in those lists, and putting the lists together, then finding a tool that I could use online that I liked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's what I do now. When I get up in the morning, I go to that list
Got it.
and I try to whittle it down. If I get 2 or 3 things done per day that are on my list, that's pretty good. Now, some days I'll have a day where I just feel, I look at the news and I'll slip. I'll look at the news, I just feel like, oh, you know, this is just really depressing. I just can't get my head together, or maybe physically I just feel really tired to run down,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or I'm doing 2 or 3 podcast interviews back to back, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to try to get anything done that day. That will be what I'm getting done.
Right.
So, for example, tomorrow I'm going to make sure that I hold myself accountable and say, you've got to write at least 2 short blog posts, make at least 1 short video, no matter what. You know, um, I used to, look at stuff, at night and everything. Now I'm very particular what I watch on TV. I don't sit and look at Netflix or Hulu. I go to the great courses. I study courses on YouTube, programming. So I basically try to become the person I want to be and make that relevant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Instead of looking at someone and saying, man, Cesar just seems to have his stuff together so much. I want to be cool like Cesar. I want to have my act together like him. Well, what are you doing to get to that
Right.
point? And I'm just using you as an
Yep.
example,
Yep.
obviously. Um, and so you have to set realistic expectations and goals and adhere to those every day. It's just like being a student in college.
Yep.
Hold yourself accountable to that. If you talk to some big giant muscle man and you say, boy, I'd like to have big giant muscles like him, he's going to say, well, I go into the gym, I work out 4 hours a day.
Right.
I don't have 4 hours a day to go work out. So it's not a priority, but using this is a greater priority.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love that. I love that. Um, and if people wanted to connect with you, where can they find you and learn more about you?
Absolutely. Go to Google and type in dms.blue.
Okay.
Real simple.
Very simple. I love that. So
Those are my initials. It's what I do. It's my favorite color, and it's
it's
what I
it's your
wear every day.
it's your brand is your definitely.
Yeah. A long time ago, I built a beautiful custom website and online presence for an optician.
Mm,
And they were an older couple in their 70s. They weren't very tech savvy. And I just said, look, I'll take care of everything for you. You don't have to worry. You're good
mhm,
people. Give me half of what I want in payment. Give me the other half in glasses.
mm.
It got to be at least $5,000 in glasses.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
have about 10 or 15 pairs of blue glasses. My wife has
Nice.
5 pairs of purple glasses. I got purple reading glasses. I got
Yeah.
uh, purple regular, blue regular glasses. But that was part of defining a visual brand,
Yeah.
just so people could see, like, okay, I know who this dude is, his initials, what he
Yeah.
does, and so you kind of stand out a little bit. It gives you a little bit of that visual edge. It's not most important. It's more important how you treat people.
Oh, of
But
course. Yeah.
it's just a fun fact.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. I love that. Okay. And the last question I have for you, you've given us a lot of great nuggets, a lot of great tips. What would be one thing you can say to the listeners and viewers that they can start doing today to help them overcome something in their life?
I would say to please realize that what you want to achieve in life is a process. It's not an item. And that could be digital marketing. It could be promoting a business. It could be a website that so many people see as being a single item. Everything good takes time. There's an old song that I like very much called that. Everything good takes time. And the video on YouTube shows Michael Jordan as a little boy, and he goes to visit his high school coach. And I remember reading an interview with Michael Jordan, and he said when he was a little boy, he would always trip over the ball and he would make all kinds of mistakes. And the coach would say, "You have no talent, go home." And he would go home and cry. But he would study and watch the videos and then go back when no one was around and practice. And it would be for hours and hours every day. And now I would think most people would agree. He achieved what he wanted.
Yeah.
So I would say, please understand that even though we live in a fast food culture where everybody's looking at bright apps that are all trying to grab your attention, that nothing in life is immediate. Fast food culture doesn't work in getting anything meaningful out of life. Relationships don't come immediately. Businesses take years. Amazon didn't come as Amazon. If you look at the original Amazon website, it looked horrible. All they did was sell books.
Mm-hmm.
It took them years and years to slowly build and grow from that. And everything that Bezos made, he reinvested back into infrastructure by buying up warehouses and hiring more and more people. And he's still doing that today. It was years before they even showed any profit at all. So understand that what you want to do is a process. You know, um, whatever your challenges, whatever you're facing in life or in business, you can't overcome, but understand it's a process, and you've got to dedicate yourself one day at a time. Let me just say this. There's a really good quote that I like from the author Henry David Thoreau, who wrote Walden.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a famous quote, and he said, "Build your castles in the air, for that is where they belong. Now lay your foundation beneath it." So imagine a castle floating in the air. It has to have a foundation somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So remember that. If you're facing alcoholism, you have to go to the AA meetings. You have to follow through. Take it one day at a time. Stay away from people who still drink. If you're having relationship issues or anger issues, find support systems. Go to them. If they're not having physical face-to-face meetings because of what's going on now, do it online.
Mm-hmm.
Get on the phone. If you want to lose weight, cut back on eating so much, drink and sure. There's a way to do everything. Just decide that you won't accept no, that no will be your vitamin.
Yeah, I love that. And that was very, very, very good, David. Thank you so much for that. It's definitely a good way to close this segment. I really enjoyed that. So, David, once again, thank you for being here and sharing a lot of your experiences and great tips that our listeners can listen to and hopefully apply the minute they listen to this. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And for the rest of you guys, do me a favor. Please make sure that you check us out on YouTube, on all the podcast platforms. Please comment, share, and leave a comment here. Once again, thank you. And I'll see you at the next episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you feel stuck? Do you feel like life is against you? Do you feel like you can't get ahead? Well, we have a podcast for you. You can overcome anything with Cesar Espino, real estate investor and real estate coach, NLP practitioner, and author of the book of the same name. Cesar will show you a way to overcome anything in your life through talking with people from all walks of life that have done just that. You Can Overcome Anything podcast available on Spreaker.com.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.CesarRespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.